Ho, ho, ho. I hope everybody has that milk and cookies ready for Santa and the kids are in bed, awaiting that big moment to be able to run out to the Christmas tree and open those presents. Merry Christmas to each and every single one of you. I'm a little bit early on the Christmas part and a little bit late on the videos part. Today has been a big change for my channel as the name has changed. If you haven't noticed, I've gone ahead and updated and went with the new, improved version of myself, an ex-con's thoughts. It's no longer a convict's thoughts. We're now updating and going smoothly into the transition of what we really are. We're an ex-con. We're no longer a convict. That life has sailed. I still have all the experience, so I hope to share some of those with you as we transition into the new year of 2024. Big things on the horizon, many of new cases to be talked about, many of deep dives into old cases to reminisce on those. We'll dive more into my personal history, along with Jennifer joining and supporting me through that. So big things on the horizon. But the one thing, and I've got to talk about it before we even get to moving, because it's very important to me. Evidence. What does the evidence in the Idaho 4 stand for based off of the search warrants and what they've taken from the crime scenes? Now, I've got to go ahead and break it to you. I made a mistake. I did make a mistake. I stated that there was no search warrant issued in regards to the 1122 King Road home and documentation of said items taken from that home. I actually found it. It's back in February on the court dockets, completely sealed. There's even redactions within that. So I don't know fully what was in that, but I can say this. I know there's still issues there because remember, we've had more return visits to that crime scene since then, including the cowboy-looking investigators that showed up in the minivan that so many have questions about. We've had prosecution FBI back at the scene numerous times, so I wonder if they've updated and brought new light to those documents of what's been taken from that home. I don't know. I'm going to continue to research that, but I do know a search warrant was issued. They must have chain of custody of the evidence that was taken from that home in some manner. We just may never be able to see it. But what I think is very important that we do is we go ahead and we're going to go back to those search warrants. We're going to discuss items that were taken and what they could possibly mean to this case. Could they show some sort of pattern of guilt to the defendant, or is this just more evidence that gets collected like it normally does within cases that really has no meaning whatsoever? So we're going to break it down. We're going to start with his parents' home, Bryan Kohberger, Idaho 4 case, parents' home in Pennsylvania, when they did the sneak attack raid of the home in the middle of the night, and they arrested him actually on December 30th. So the warrants were issued just prior to that arrest, and I want to go over some of the items that were actually taken from the home, and then we're going to discuss those. In a second video, we're going to go over the car and what was found and confiscated from the car and the search warrant of that. And then thirdly, we will go over Bryan Kohberger's Pullman, Washington apartment and dissect what was taken from that apartment, what was not, and what all that will mean to the evidence within this case as well. Of course, this is opinions based off of my thoughts, my experience of what has happened in my past when they've taken evidence from a crime scene, and what typically manufactures to be beneficial and what doesn't within a case. So, Let's start again. Parents' home, Christmas vacation in Pennsylvania. Within the warrant, some of the basic items that are listed is a cell phone was taken, most likely his personal cell phone, ladies and gentlemen. I would think that was the cell phone that he took with him everywhere. He used that at all times. Personal cell phone. Multiple laptops. Now, multiple laptops probably means these are one he's currently using and some older ones that may no longer be used. They could also be gaming laptops. There could be a wide range of the usages of these laptops. Now, could these play a key part within the case? Absolutely. Search histories will be on those laptops. Different other downloaded documents or even writings will be found on those laptops. So each one of those will be completely torn apart, and every shred of that will be utilized and brought to the surface on whether there's something there integral to the case or whether there's just nothing there whatsoever. But they're going to tear those apart and look at all the histories of those. A knife. We don't know what that said knife is. I personally do not feel this is going to be a knife that came back with him from Washington, so I don't believe it would be the actual knife used in the crime because, well, that would be insanity to drive across the country with that in your car all the way back to your parents' home 2,500 miles away. I just don't see it being done. A pocket knife was also found. So, what these to me are showing is he has a tendency to have knives. Don't know why. Don't know if he's a collector. Don't know if he utilizes them for something. I mean, most of us in our lifetimes have had a pocket knife. And because we don't know what the specification of a knife means, it could literally be a butter knife for all we know. But it does show the tendency that he does own knives. A 40 caliber handgun. With that, there's 3 empty magazines. So to me, what this shows, he also owns a firearm. A firearm was not used in the crime that we know of. And most people probably looking to get themselves into law enforcement would get themselves acquainted with a firearm because normally you would carry one in the line of duty on a police force. He had black face masks. I mean, I love how they throw the word black in there. I get that they are the color black, but if you really want to get the mind stirring of people trying to find guilt, you use the terminology black because he was clad in black. But coming out of COVID, I'm sure many of us had stacks of face masks laying around our homes. Black gloves. Okay, well, I mean, I'm sure gloves were worn during the crime, and it kind of makes sense. Clad in black, we got to keep everything, on that even keel of black. So, could those be a part of the crime? Absolutely. Do I think these very pair of black gloves were a part of the crime? I highly doubt it because, again, he would have had to have driven black gloves across the country with evidence from the crime scene on them. 2 external hard drives. It just goes back to the multiple laptops. These could be taken, obviously, to find any search history or any evidence of past usage that he used these computers for. Obviously, being external hard drives, these are things that you would add or download onto to save the hard drive of your laptops or computers. So who knows what could be possibly on those. A lot of people that have gaming experience do have external hard drives. Anybody that actually does research or schooling also typically has external hard drives because you're downloading and keeping a lot of extra documents or research that would take up a lot of your hard drive and slow down your computer. So that's not something that would be unusual for someone in a PhD program or going through college to have. More articles of dark clothing. I mean, it speaks for itself. It's more articles of dark clothing. So obviously, in their search, they're going to be trying to get as much evidence as they possibly can, just in case any of those get run through their system and through their testing to find any DNA from the crime scene on them. A green leafy substance in a plastic bag. Could that maybe be a leafy substance that many people across the country probably smoke? And I'm not fully sure, but it may be possible that Pennsylvania is not up to date with other states that have legalized that now. So they confiscated a bag with a leafy substance in it. That, to me, is quite obvious, and I would hope most of you would see this. That would not tie back to the crime scene in Moscow, Idaho. So they break down even more so. They took an AT&T bill for Bryan Kohberger. They took a book with underlinings of probably various passages or wordings within that book. I know it's been explained out there. You know, I'm sure that they're going to try to utilize that in some way to connect his mindset to the crime. Whether or not that's real and true, we'll never know. But I'm sure they're going to do all their investigation within that. The pocket knife with the Smith & Wesson pocket knife. It was a Glock 22 Generation 40 caliber gun. Acer laptop. Various documents that they took from the home. They found another green leafy substance in a container outside of the plastic baggie. So they found two separate green leafy substances. White paper with a password written on it. A power cable. Very important. Got to take that power cable so that they're able to power up whatever actual electronic devices that they took from the home. They took 3 Glock 40 caliber magazines, obviously empty. So I don't know if they ever found the actual firearm bullets to go in that. They took other various books, prescriptions. One black hat with another various black mask. So they did also find a note to Dad from Bryan and a note from Bryan to Montana. That's kind of interesting. I'm not sure what that is. Also, a man's world drawing. So, for a quadruple homicide, and I do want to state that we're looking, obviously, to find justice for the quadruple homicide of Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee. But we do want to ensure that justice doesn't cost a man his life that could possibly be innocent in Bryan Kohberger. So we got to keep him in our thoughts as well. But when I look over what they actually took from his parents' home, there is no smoking gun here. There's nothing here that just jumps off the page and says, oh, he's got to be guilty. I get it. It sounds bad because we hear within the PCA the clad in black, and then here we hear black face mask, black hat, black dark clothing. Well, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I own black hats. I still have black face masks laying around both my storage unit, in my car, and probably other places as well because we went through COVID and I probably have not gotten rid of everything that I should have gotten rid of since then. I also have black gloves. I wear a lot of black clothing. So none of that stands out to me because I just don't think that Bryan Kohberger would actually have driven across country from Washington State with his father in the car with all that evidence from a crime scene all the way to Pennsylvania. I don't see it happening. I just don't see it. Now, it also shows he was absolutely cleared to buy a firearm because he bought the gun. So when people say, well, he used the handiest weapon at his disposal to commit this crime, well, he did have a firearm as well. So this could have gone either way for him if he had chosen to commit this crime. He could have used a firearm as well. Or it sounds like he had a series of weapons, knives. So maybe he was a collector of those. So all these people that think 7 months prior he ordered a knife from Amazon, well, yeah, maybe they have it right here. Could this be one that he ordered from Amazon right here within this very search warrant that they took from the home? And remember, we hear about him standing in his kitchen in a pair of boxers, bagging stuff up. Well, I mean, they did find a green leafy substance in a Ziploc bag that's within their confiscated evidence of a warrant. To me, I've known many of people that bag up green leafy substances in Ziploc bags, so that wouldn't be a surprise to me. And if that is the case of what he was actually doing, why are we throwing this major fit that he possibly was in his kitchen with a pair of gloves on? Come on, let's be real about this. People that do that type of stuff do wear gloves at times because they don't want the smell on their hands. So a lot of this puts a scope right directly on that maybe it wasn't that wild of a search and seizure at his parents' house when it literally comes down to them taking books, computers, an AT&T cell phone bill, and other various documents. Well, shoot, ladies and gentlemen, that would be the type of stuff they would take from my home as well. It does not add up to anything at the parents' house would have anything to do with this case outside of maybe what's on the electronic devices. The cell phone and the laptops would be the main keys, in my opinion, to what they found at the parents' home. It's going to be very important of what they get off of those laptops and external hard drives. It's going to matter what the searches show. It's going to what was downloaded, what was implemented within the writing programs on there, where maybe he was writing things. It's going to have a history on those, unless he completely destroyed the history, which is possible. I know many people that do that with their old devices. So I can't tell you, based off of this, that I'm finding anything within that search warrant that jumps out to me. Now, obviously, all the mainstream media was jumping all over the fact they found a knife, they found black gloves, they found, the face mask, the dark clothing, and of course, they were talking all about him being in the kitchen, middle of the morning, well, late night, early morning, bagging stuff up. I didn't know that was a crime. I really didn't. I guess depending on what you were bagging up, maybe that would determine whether it was a crime or not. But based on this search warrant, I don't think there's any clues. If you guys have thoughts about this before I just kind of close it down to the fact they didn't get anything but a couple of pieces of mail, they got a gun, they got a couple of knives, they got a couple of laptops. Doesn't sound all that important to me, but in the next video, we're going to do a little bit of a dive into what they found in the white Hyundai. Give me your thoughts. Give me your opinions. Christmas Eve. More videos to come. Have a great night.